Welcome back to the Suffering for Art podcast. I am your host, Brianna, Kaleen, and today we are going somewhere that I think every creative needs to at some point. It explains so much about why we feel stuck, why we feel misunderstood, and why we sometimes feel like we're losing our minds just trying to be a person in the world. We're talking about the left brain, right brain thing. Now, quick disclaimer, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the brain is simple. Humans are complicated, and the whole left brain and right brain thing can be very oversimplified, but today we're using it as shorthand because even if it's not perfectly scientific, in a very literal way, it describes something very real in our lived experience. It describes that the world rewards logical people. It rewards people who can be organized, who can plan, who can execute, who can keep things moving. It rewards people who can make a system, and it rewards people who can be consistent no matter what they feel. And I'm not trying to say that that's evil. I think structure is very important. I think systems are very important, that discipline is very important. But if you are a creative, especially if you feel deeply as a creative, you've probably felt the pressure to feel like you need to be functional instead of a emotions-based person. Like you have to earn the right to be taken seriously. And the corporate world is a very perfect example of this, right? And honestly, I think the creative world is as well. Being an artist nowadays isn't just making art. It's content calendars, it's marketing, it's pitching, it's building a brand, it's showing up online, it's networking, it's emails, it's contracts. It's being creative while also running a small business, while also being a human with a nervous system. And it's not a coincidence that many creatives end up hiring agents and managers and assistants and PRs, because sometimes we're literally outsourcing the left brain piece so that we can stay in the right brain mode and be creative. What happens is we end up internalizing a very specific message that if I'm not organized, I'm failing. If I'm not consistent, then I'm not serious about this work. If I rest, then I'm weak. If I'm emotional, then I'm dramatic. And I think the thing that makes me sad is that a lot of creatives start trying to edit their own humanity just to fit into the world. We're trying to become someone that we aren't. And I think that a lot of us just feel weird. We feel different because naturally some people might lead with emotion and naturally some people might lead with knowledge. I know myself, I actually am not an emotional person, but I am still a creative. And so while there are a lot of creatives who are emotion based and emotion forward thinkers, there are also a lot of us who are logic based. Um, and sometimes it's kind of difficult to find yourself in this world where maybe I need to be emotional to create, but I can't tap into that. Or maybe I need to be logical and have structure, but I can't tap into that either. Um, I think it's very important to understand the relationship between yourself, between others, and between your craft. And I like to kind of have this framework of the left brain versus the right brain to kind of give us a cool perspective on those three relationships. And I think that the best way to do that is to have guests. I don't like to claim that I know everything. I really don't. And so today I'm really excited to have Kiana and Andrew from Soul Journey Project. They are therapists and coaches, and they work with individuals and couples. And I think they can share a lot of insight on this relationship to yourself, to your craft, and to others. We're going to be looking at what left brain and right brain people look like in real life, how it shows up in your relationships with yourself, others, and your craft, and how to stop judging yourself for the way you're wired while you still learn to grow and progress. So without further ado, welcome Kiana and Andrew.
Hi,
Hello,
thank you
y'all.
so much. How are
Yeah, of
you?
course.
Thank you for
I'm
having us.
good. Thank you for being here.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the invite.
Of course. I like to say this part of the episode is kind of your bragging part. So, can you tell us a little bit more about yourselves and what you do?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, we are a married therapist and coach duo helping individuals and couples take the step towards clarity, connection, and personal accountability. So it's a big part of what we do. We do therapy, individual therapy, couples therapy, and coaching services to help us achieve whatever higher version of yourself that you're really desiring.
100%. And what are both of your backgrounds?
Yeah. So I'm a therapist. I've been in the field for over 12 years. I focus on high achieving women seeking more fulfillment. And I love doing this work, love seeing where people were and then seeing where they can become, and that process and that journey along the way is just something I just really find a lot of value in.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
And my background is actually 15 years in running in corporate human resources. I'm also a certified professional coach focusing on authentic communication and relationships. I
Awesome.
use my coaching background also in my corporate experience, in my corporate world, to really help find alignment with leaders, their teams, staff members and their goals, what they ultimately want to achieve. And then, of course, in our work together with our couples.
Yeah, that's awesome. So this like left brain, right brain talk can be kind of very deep and also kind of very light. I kind of want to start with what you guys label the left and right brain as, and then a fun question. What do you guys say that you are? Are you left brain? Are you right brain? Are you both? Like, I would love to hear more.
Mm.
Absolutely, yes. So in the therapy world, we call the left brain the reasonable mind. So you're leading with that logic and facts. You're more calculated, task oriented. You tend to think more long term. And you can even sometimes diminish your own feelings because you're focusing on what you should do, right? What the right thing to do is, what makes sense. The emotional mind is what we call the right brain. And that's where feelings are facts. We lead with the feelings. We allow that to guide our actions. We may be more short-term thinking, more of a YOLO kind of approach, and go with the flow, but it's really more in the moment. The emotions are the ones taking the lead. And then we have kind of our happy medium, which we consider the wise mind, which is where we really spend a lot of time with our clients of how do we get to that place where we merge reason and emotion to see different perspectives, to find that balance, to help us grounded, keep us grounded, and approach from more of that emotional intelligence where we're combining the two.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you stated that very well. When we work with our couples, our goal is to really try to bring more of that balance, that left brain, right brain synchronicity and coherence into their lives so they know how to balance the two, especially when stress is high, right? And that's when your tendencies tend to show most clear, is when there's high stress moments, like whether there's a deadline you have to meet or, you just have a lot of things going on and you really just need to go straight to your most efficient, most effective path. You tend to lean one way or the other in terms of how you process the information and then act. So as far as like how we align, I would say personally, naturally, I'm a little bit more on the analytical thinking side. So slightly more left-brained, but I can now at this point in my life and really working on it and bringing a lot of intentionality, I definitely feel like I have a good mix, a blend, a little bit more balance. But I have to really be aware of it and practice mindfulness and meditation and do the different things that help me stay aligned and balanced.
Yeah.
Yes, I definitely lean more towards feeling. You'll hear kind of how you know which is which. You'll hear people say, I feel like, or I think, and, it kind of follows. So definitely more of a feeler, but also have learned how to not just run with that completely. And especially when you have a business, then, you can't just feel your way through business.
Yeah.
You can find yourself in a lot of compromised positions and relationships that maybe don't really work for you. So I've definitely had to learn to integrate more of the reason and logic as well to be more balanced.
Yeah. That's really cool that you guys are kind of opposites.
Yeah.
I feel like opposites attract, but also I feel like teamwork is best when you have people on both sides and able to see from both perspectives. What would you guys say? I know you said you can kind of tell the difference, Kiana, if someone says I feel like or I think. What are some other ways people can kind of see in themselves where they might lean in the logic and the emotion?
It's really about what motivates you to take action at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Are you the type to want to act just kind of more right away, just kind of impulsively? That could be a signal that you're more on the feeling side of things versus if you're a little bit more strategic, you may think through, strategize, and that person can also maybe on the negative side be a little bit more of the analysis by paralysis kind of thing, or paralysis analysis, whatever. They might think too much, right, and overanalyze and maybe not take action as quickly or be really hesitant to take action. So that's one way to kind of observe what side you fall into.
Yeah.
Well, I think the key piece is you mentioned before under stress, right? When you're approaching a stressful situation, what do you lead with? Do you lead with, well, let me think this through. Okay, this and this and this. So, A plus B equal, okay, I need to do C, right? Or are you, oh my goodness, you feel the weight of the emotion of the situation. But even on the reasoning side, you can be over analytical, as Andrew was saying, where you're overthinking from that angle, but more staying in the thinking space versus over feeling when we're under stress. So I think it's kind of another differentiator there too.
Yeah. What do you think makes someone more right-brained or left-brained? Is it like environment? Is it situational? Like, what do you think brings out that in a specific person?
It's the kind of classic nurture over nature conversation, right? And it's, of course, a little bit of both. We all probably have our things that we lean a little bit more towards, we're a little bit more comfortable with kind of naturally, just who we are as people in the world. But then there's also things where it was cultivated in us as we grew up in our households and the environments and our schooling and so on. As you mentioned kind of in the intro, society does push you more into that analytical side, the math and science and, 1 + 1 = 2 and very linear thinking.
Yeah.
Corporate America tends to value that type of flow as well. So we almost have to morph into that a little bit, or at least society tries to compel us to morph into that. Where on the more creative side, it's a little bit more like circular thinking. It's not always a straight line. You don't come to a conclusion just by a very linear process. It's much more, you're connecting multiple dots, right? And to a more logical person, it may not make sense, so to speak, right? But you could still get to a similar end result. So I think it's a little bit of both. It's your environment, it's your upbringing, it's society or the culture that you grow up in, and then just your own natural kind of maturation and
Tendencies,
yeah. I think we see too. We're always asking, our couples and individuals about their background and their upbringing, and I definitely see a theme with those that are more left brain, where maybe their parents weren't necessarily big on affection or saying I love you or, different things like that. A lot of people will say, we didn't talk about emotions, right? Someone passed away and we just kept going, right? So there's those aspects there too, where if the parental figures didn't necessarily align, either in the middle or on the right brain, I've seen that where it's harder for them, or if they didn't have a solid parental figure growing up or things like that, had to kind of grow up fast. You may have had to just be forced into just taking action and, I don't have time to feel because I have to do. So I think we definitely see that aspect as well in your upbringing and how that plays a major role.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of like what was nurtured, like you said.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, with us as creatives, like I said, I feel like they're most people would say they lean on the emotional side when creative people
Mhm.
talk about their work. When they talk about their life, it's kind of like I feel, or um, I want to do this because it brings me this type of feeling or this type of connectivity to the creative flow or something like that. It's always about like very like go with the flow, very, I kind of like to call it like waves. Like
Yeah,
it's less of a,
whimsical.
yeah, very whimsical. Yeah, that's a good word for it.
Yeah.
And I think that brings out a lot of beautiful work, right? It can be very deep work, very emotional work, very joyful work, whatever comes of it is beautiful. I think there are, like myself, very logical, creative people. If you ask me to sit down and make something, I'm actually planning out, like if I'm writing a song, I'm planning out the framework of the song. I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
so the beginning starts like this and the end starts like this. So then we have to make the middle. It's very like analytical in the way that I create.
Yeah.
And I think with this relationship to self, it's interesting to see where you land and then to look at your your processes and see how the other side can help you become a better creative, right? And
Definitely.
so I wonder if I'm logic based and I tend to look at structure first and strategy first, how can I bring in the emotional side? And also, if I'm emotions based and it's hard for me to sit down and think like long term, okay, I want to write the song, but how do I actually get it to the producer and get it to the mixer and get it, out into the world? It's hard for me to think that long term. How do you kind of bridge the gap between the other side of the brain?
Yeah.
Mm,
Okay. Yeah, the first word that comes to my mind is intentionality.
mm,
Because we're going to default to what we're going to default to. But if we're not intentional about considering another way, considering another perspective, then it's going to be hard to just, it's not just going to osmosis happen
right.
where we're
Yeah.
going to, integrate both. We have to be intentional. So if you are more of a logic person, really thinking about, well, how does this song make me feel? Why do I want to write this? Why is this important? What's that passion
Mm-hmm.
for it? Right? Kind of
Yeah.
asking yourself some of those questions to help you. You're still thinking through, but you're incorporating more of the feelings,
Mm,
right? And then on the feeling side, you know the passion, you know why, all of that is there, but kind of being intentional about, well, what's the first step I need to do in order to take this to the next level, in order
yeah.
to better organize? Is there someone I need to call? Is there something? So
Hmm.
planning it out that way from an intentional perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, obviously a challenge for a lot of people who have a creative idea or want to express themselves in a more creative way. Even if you are more logical and say you want to start a business, right? You still need creativity, you still need imagination, you still need to be able to think outside of the box
Yeah.
to execute, what it's going to take to start your own business and so on. So in everything, you need a balance of both,
Mm-hmm.
of
Hmm.
that creative thinking, right, outside of the box thinking, and the ability to execute, right, in a more linear fashion.
Right.
Hmm.
So I like what Kiana is saying about the intentionality behind it. Also knowing your why and fully understanding, what am I trying to achieve? Why do I want to achieve it? How does it align with my values, my desires, right? Like where I want to go in my life. Making sure you've done some of that foundational work first before acting,
Yeah.
because the downside to the emotional side of ourselves is when we don't put the thought into it, we can just act. The word motion is in emotion. It
Hmm.
moves us, right?
Right.
So it's necessary. It's an important part of our psychology. But the challenge is not being so impulsive that we don't actually plan,
Mm.
right?
Right.
And we actually take the strategic steps bit by bit.
Yeah.
So we can get just too far in,
Yeah.
before realizing, oh man, like I didn't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and that's the challenge. And for the more analytical person, you can be really planful and you can have all the steps outlined, but then you don't actually take action.
Hmm.
Because the feeling isn't strong enough, the why
Yeah.
isn't strong enough to move you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, when we think about art specifically, whether it's music or poetry or a beautiful piece of writing, a short story, it's all about emotion. It's all about trying to get you
Yeah.
to feel a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the creator wants you to have those feelings,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the point, right? It's the
Yeah.
voice of the soul
Mm-hmm.
is our creativity.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful thing, but it can get out of balance, just like the analytical side can get out of balance.
Yeah. That's so good. I love the emotion, motion. I've actually never thought of emotion like that. That's actually really cool.
Yeah.
And I think you hit it right on the head. Like people who plan out and then are like, "Oh, I planned." And then they don't actually do it. It's typically because you are losing that like why and that motivation to move forward with it. And people who are super emotional will be like, yeah, let's do it. And then they look up and it's like, how do I actually do this? Because they haven't thought about it. So I think that is so correct. I wonder, the middle balance. You guys said you called it the wise
The wise
person or
Wise
mind.
emotionally
mind.
intelligent. Yeah, wise mind. How do you know you've hit that middle ground? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, when you're integrating both, right? Where we're not just considering emotion, we're not just considering logic. We're considering, okay, this is how I feel, and this is what I want to do. What makes sense? How do we flow? Where's that synergy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where you don't feel like you're lacking on either side. You're not impulsive, and you're not just planning all day and not doing anything,
Yeah.
but you feel the feeling, but you also have that path forward, and you take action. So it's that beautiful synergy between the two, is what comes to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like most things in life, it's not a absolute destination.
Yeah.
It's more of a spectrum. You're just kind of progressing a little bit at a time as you evoke that awareness in yourself, right? And you bring that intentionality into play that, okay, I'm going to take extra time to make sure I'm thinking through these different aspects. You're asking yourself a lot of questions
Yeah.
versus making definitive statements. You're going to have feelings, but then validating those feelings with thoughts, right? So you're balancing the feelings and the facts. And so it's something that you do over a lifetime. I don't know if anybody ever masters it, but as she said, you kind of start to observe these different small nuances in how you go about executing, right? So
Yeah.
most of the time, it kind of works like this. You have a thought. That thought creates a feeling. And then the feeling is what then creates the action, right? Because as we said, the word motion is in emotion. The E represents energy, energy in motion, emotion. But that's not going to come unless you have a thought first. You have an idea. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The thought
Yeah.
comes, then it evokes a feeling. And it's the feeling that typically moves us towards action.
Yeah.
And if the
I
feeling is
wonder.
not strong enough, you don't act,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, I should really go back to school. But if you ain't feeling it, you're not going.
Right.
I should really
Yeah.
get up and do the dishes. But if you don't have a strong feeling that comes behind that thought, you know you should. But there's not a strong enough feeling to get you to act.
Yeah.
You see? So when people are creatives, they feel deeply and they feel strongly most of the time. So they want to act right away. You see, but what was missing? The thought.
Yeah.
They got hit through the feeling side first instead of the thought side.
And I wonder what it looks like for there to be structure or systems around you that give you no choice but to put the thought into a functional act. You know what I'm saying? So it's not just like, I'm thinking, I feel it, I'm going to do it. It's kind of, or I feel it, I'm going to do it. It's like, I'm thinking, I already have this system in place that allows for my creative process to actually be streamlined. And now that I have the feeling, I'm just going to input into the system. You know what I'm saying? Where it's less about chance that this feeling will bring about something, you know, it's more of a, when
More
I have
formulaic.
this thought, yeah, I do these steps to allow for my feelings to still be um, felt,
Mhm.
but also to allow for that structure in the organization for this to actually be an output and creative action. Um, I think also from the logical side, you can have the system and the structure, and then it's like, well, I don't feel anything. So now I'm just going to sit here and, you know, try to manufacture a creation or try to manufacture a feeling. And maybe that is sitting with your thoughts long enough to ask, what am I feeling? And, you know, what emotions am I processing right now? Um, and then on the feeling side, it's a, what's the system that I need to help my feelings be um, turn into a product, right? That's kind of what creativity ends up being when it's monetized or less of a hobby. It becomes like, okay, this does need to turn into some type of um, money or
Revenue stream.
revenue. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
Mhm.
it's like, if this emotion does need to turn into that, if I've decided that's the process of my life, right? Then it's like, okay, then what system is
Mhm.
something that can actually be structurally sound for the output to be healthy? Um,
Right.
yeah, you guys mentioned that feeling isn't fact. Um, I think creatives, we get so deep in the emotion,
Yeah.
mainly because the process of going through the emotion and the process of sitting in the emotion brings about like really beautiful art. Um, but I also think it's very easy then for the emotion to run your life. And it's like, I'm writing a piece about sorrow and grief. So suddenly like everything I see is seen through the lens of that sorrow and grief,
Right. Yeah.
which kind of changes your perspective of the world.
Yeah.
Um, I wonder what a healthy look on life can look like while also still creating out of that feeling. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Definitely. Yeah, so I think. So I said I think, right? I'm a thinker. So that's my deal. That's my deal. It's about creating that coherence between your thoughts and your feelings. So I look at it like this: we go to college, or whatever, you go to school, what have you, and you kind of go down this career path. Logically, it's a good idea. I'm an engineer, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, whatever. But eventually, a lot of these people hit a wall, right? They get burned out. They don't feel connected to their work. What is happening there? Emotionally, they're no longer connected. The logical mind says this makes sense. You make a lot of money, you have the degree, you have this experience. The results are pretty solid, right? You have a nice house, maybe you drive a nice car, whatever, but you feel empty, or you feel like something's missing. What's missing? The emotional connection to the work. So those folks then start going on a little journey to find their purpose, or find deeper connection in the work that they do, because that's what was lacking. On the flip side, as you were describing, you can be so emotionally driven, right, where you feel so deeply about everything, but you don't seem to have one clear direction on where to direct that energy. So you either feel overwhelmed, or a lot is on your plate, or you're trying to do too much because you have so many passions. You know what I'm saying? You're doing art, you're braiding hair, you're
Right.
going back to school, you know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
you volunteer on the
Me.
weekends, and it's
Right.
like the whole thing, right? You're like, got everything going, but you just
Yeah.
feel like out of control,
Yeah.
Hmm.
right? Because there's a lack of balance on that systematic,
Right.
piece. So
Hmm.
everything is about striking the right balance between the two aspects of ourselves, or the multiple aspects of ourselves.
Hmm.
So that formula that you were kind of describing is going to look a little different depending on how you engage with the world.
Hmm.
If you're the type that engages with the world through the thinking mind first, then you need to make sure you're validating what you think with, well, how does that make you feel? Yes, you could go be a doctor, and yeah, you could make a lot of money doing that, but how do you feel about it?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Right? And if there's not a lot of strong energy behind it, emotion, feeling behind it, then maybe that's not your path. So you need to realign, with something that gives you a little bit more excitement and motivation. And if you're a feeler, if you kind of come through the world through the feeling side first, validate those feelings with your thoughts. Like, yeah, I feel like this is a great idea and I want to go do it. Okay, but let's pause for a second. Let's think that through. Is that actually going to help us achieve our goal?
Right.
Right? Do we actually have a plan on how we will monetize? How will we feed ourselves if we do this?
Right.
You got to get practical. So if you're the emotion-driven person, you need practicality to balance you. If you're the thinking, analytical person, logical person, you need the feeling to balance you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we'll often say that feelings are not facts, but they are valid, and it's your perspective. And that deserves to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
Right? But keep in mind, it's a perspective. Right? There may be something else that we're not considering. So we're missing all of this over here because we're focusing on this here. And the importance of just considering that as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And kind of can transition us to relationship with others, right? Like you're seeing your own perspective through your emotion and the way you have perceived the world, maybe because of the environment you grew up in, or the people you've had around you, the perspectives that you've heard before. Like, so when that's happening, and I'm also maybe emotion driven and not logical, and I keep to myself in this little bubble, then not only do I have to try to remember to think logically, but I don't have people around me to say, hey, have you thought about this? Or, what about this perspective, or certain things like that. But I wonder, in relationships where you have people who are left brain heavy or right brain heavy, how can you allow for the communication and the appreciation of someone else's perspective? And yeah, I'll leave it at there for now. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think first of all, realizing that neither is better. And I think that's huge, because in relationships, we get so much into this competition. And as you started off talking about, the corporate world and society favors left brain people.
Yeah.
So it's very easy in a relationship, if one person is left and the other is right, how the emotions can get diminished because they don't make sense. Right? And then that's putting down our partner, not validating how they feel, dismissing it, and that leads to us both being misunderstood. So knowing first off, neither are right or wrong. They both have their beauty.
Yeah.
And
That's
if you
really
come
good.
at it from that angle, that helps us to not try to one up each other,
Right.
but to realize, okay, you may be seeing something I'm not considering. I may be seeing something you're not considering. Let's ask clarifying questions
Yeah.
so we can have that cohesion.
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you're working through a challenge, conflict with your partner or in a relationship, any type of relationship, there is a certain path of least resistance that gets you the best outcome. And that's recognizing, as Kiana said, though facts or though feelings may not be facts all the time, they are real, they do need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed first. Because often what happens is one person expresses how they feel. The other person tries to nullify that feeling with my facts.
Yeah.
And it comes off as defensiveness.
And dismissive.
And now we're in the competition that Kiana was just talking about. What we coach our clients through is we need to shift the order in which we address feelings and facts. We need to acknowledge and validate the feelings first, because they are present, they are here, and that's what moved them to act, to talk to me, to tell me how they felt. So that needs to be addressed first. Acknowledging and validating doesn't mean I agree with how you came to your conclusion, But what it means is I recognize that something has impacted you. Right? So let us deal with that first. I see that you are upset. You know? And what I'm hearing you say is, when I said this, it made you feel this way.
Right.
That's on me. That was not my intention. Right?
Yeah.
So now I've acknowledged, I've validated, and I've taken accountability first. Now she's going to be more receptive to hearing my facts.
Yeah, I was going to say that. When you do that first, I can hear the clarification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, I'm not trying to hear anything else you have to say
Right.
if you didn't acknowledge my side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's on either side, you know, no matter who, we all can flip flop and be in either position. But that's definitely really key, and that's needed first, and then the guard comes down a little bit.
Yeah.
And we're a lot more
I think that's
open.
Yeah, that's really good. The defensiveness, I think whether you're logic based or emotion based is something that everybody, you know, feels, because what happens is you automatically think you're not hearing me. You're not hearing my side, whether that side is emotion or logic based. It's like, you know, that defensiveness, I think can lead to a lot of miscommunication. It can lead to a lot of tension in conversations. Mainly just because someone wasn't acknowledged, right? That's like a human basis of like, did you hear me though? You know? So I think that's really great. How can someone, I know you kind of said, Andrew, that if somebody has, you know, the facts or the feelings, you can make sure that you hear the feelings and then state your facts. But how can you make sure you're kind of keeping in mind, I know my partner or my friend is emotional. When I go into this hard conversation, how can I make sure I have that in mind if I'm a facts-based person, or if I'm also an emotional person? You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah. So this is, now you're digging into like the work, right? The harder work. And that's having empathy and consideration for someone else. Being able to, and empathy just simply means being able to see the world through someone else's perspective. Right? And then acting from that knowledge, from that awareness. It's very hard. Okay? It's not always a natural thing, especially for men in general. It's generalizing, but for men it's a little bit more challenging because we don't have the maternal instinct that women have. So for women it is a little bit easier to be empathetic because you could be a mother. You know what I'm saying? And so just the physiology and psychology around that, like you're going to have to care for another human being, carry that human being in your body for 9 months, right? Once they're born, they're going to look to you to be fed, right? If you're breastfeeding, what have you. So like just, you have a little bit of women have a little bit of an advantage in that space over men. So we have to practice it. We have to have a little bit more intentionality at being empathetic and having consideration. And then of course society doesn't necessarily encourage men to be in touch with their emotions, what we used to call the feminine side, right?
Right.
But what that really means is like you're aware of your emotions and you can express them, you know, in more dimensions than just anger and frustration.
Right.
So that's the thing. That does require a lot of self-awareness, a lot of emotional intelligence, and you have to develop these skills of empathy, of consideration, and it takes time. And we're all starting from a different place, based on our upbringing, based on our environment. So, you know, that's the part that we have to. Some people, again, everybody's starting from a different spot, so it's going to take a little bit, maybe more work for some than others to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
Go ahead. A piece too, sorry, before you switch. A piece too that comes to mind, just to kind of simplify it as well, that if I'm a feeler and I want to communicate a message to a thinker, I need to communicate what is my thought process before I try to just focus on my feeling. So if I explain, so I was thinking if we did this, this, and this, I think that would really help this, and then we would all be on the same page and it would go smoothly, right? that's a way that a thinker can easily, oh, okay, cool, got it, I understand, right? And the flip side, if you're a thinker and you need to communicate something to a feeler, you need to express, how does something make you feel, right? So considering your feelings as you're sharing the message to help that feeler understand, oh, that's why they decided to do this and this because of this.
Yeah.
Right.
It's almost
So
putting yourself in the other person's shoes.
exactly. And that's that empathy, what he was talking about. So thinking of it, if I want to be an effective communicator, right? Now, nothing's wrong with how you communicate, but it's not always effective depending on who you're talking to. So if you want to be effective, knowing who you're communicating with can help you frame the message in a way that they can better receive it.
Right.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. I think a lot of the times when creatives are in conversations with other people, or even I kind of call the creative process a conversation with yourself, right? Because you're kind of processing through your emotions or your logics or whatever with yourself, because that's where the creative energy comes from. I think it's very easy to have a kind of closed off way of viewing the world. It's like, well, especially because society has told us, you're overly emotional, or you're dramatic, or you're a free spirit, or, you don't care. It's kind of just go with the flow. It can be kind of easy to be like, I am other. I am kind of seen as different. And therefore, when I go into conversations, having that insecurity almost can lead to a barrier of understanding people who look at the world differently. And I think that can also show up in the way that we look at our craft. It can kind of be like, well, I'm different. And so a different way of seeing my craft or a different perspective of viewing creativity is kind of met with resistance almost. But I do think there is something to be said about going into your creative process differently. You said earlier, Andrew, that when you are thinking, you have a thought, it's full of feeling, and then you act, right? I wonder what it looks like. Or if you're on the logical side, it's, you have the thought, you have the structure, but you don't have the motion because you don't have emotion, right? I wonder what it looks like to go into a creative practice on the opposite side of how you typically function. There are so many creatives who are like thinkers when it comes to their work. Like music theory, there's a whole world where you have people who are very technical in the way that they operate. And then you have people who are like, I don't know anything about music theory. I just press some keys on a keyboard and it sounds really cool because it feels like how I feel, right? And so it could be kind of cool to go into a creative session if you're emotions based, thinking, okay, I'm going to be very technical about this. Maybe I'm going to learn the technique behind whatever I typically do. Or if you're a thinker, going in with emotion first and being like, how do I feel today? And letting that be, letting whatever comes of it. I wonder what, and this will be my last question for you guys, what is the boundary of protecting your nervous system and your art if you may be overly emotional, or if you are logical and not used to the emotion? Like, what would you suggest maybe one thing somebody can do going into a creative session that protects their mental health from an overly emotional experience, whether they are emotions based or logical based?
So I think we have to make some delineations, right? Like, just because you want to express yourself creatively, I mean, you just be authentic to who you are. Whether you approach the world through the logical mind or through the more feelings, emotional, and imaginative side, both can work, right? Science is creativity, just like art is creativity. You're using the same muscles, you're using the same skills, just the ultimate expression is going to be different. Where the scientist wants to know why the color blue is blue, the artist just is like, I just want to use all these different forms of blue to express how I feel. So it's like, it's all good. You know what I mean? Just like, just how varied the different forms of art and creativity are and self-expression are. It's all fine, right? It's just, for either side, it's getting clarity on what is it that I want, right? What is my end goal? and then working backwards from there. So if I want to create a piece of music, or if I want to create a piece of art, whatever it may be, you have that image in your mind of ultimately what you want it to be at the end, and then you work backwards from there. And in that working backwards, you just add in a couple of more intentional components that maybe previously you weren't considering. We all do that, right? Like, I have an end goal in mind. I have this image in my head, or I have this feeling that I'm, inside of me that I want to express, and it's beauty, it's love, it's sorrow, whatever. And then I work backwards. Okay, what medium do I want to express that feeling? Right? And that's going to be based on your skills.
Yeah.
If my skill is science, then I'm going to express it through science. If my skill is painting, I'm going to express it through painting. If my skill is comedy, which is another art form, I'm going to express it through comedy.
Yeah.
Right? But now it's just adding in a couple of more intentional pieces. So you balance the two sides.
Yeah, I was going to say something else similar of, embrace who you are. A lot of what you were saying earlier about kind of the internal dialogue that happens as a creative, there's a lot of self-judgment that can come in that, right? Because it takes a lot of vulnerability to be creative. This is something that comes from a deep part of you that you're expressing to the world, and then they can say yay or nay or right? So there's a lot of vulnerability there. But it's just so key to just embrace who you are, knowing that that is beautiful just the way it is. And you may not be everybody's vibe, and that's okay, right? Because you will find that tribe in that, but being true to who you are is going to be key, whether you're more left brain, right brain, in the middle, any of that combination. And that'll be important moving forward.
Yeah, 100%.
When you think of the greats, whether you're talking about in business, in art, in music, the ones that are transcendent, that we're still talking about now, Beethoven, Bach, and all these people,
Michael Jackson,
right? or in business, right? The Bill Gates and the so and so's of the Steve Jobs, all these people. What is the hallmark amongst all of them? They were individuals. They did not try to conform to the status quo. Right. They chose a slightly different path. They did things that weren't conventional. And that's why we see them as special. Right. It's not because they followed the path, it's because they sparked their own path.
Yeah.
And as artists, that's kind of what you're trying to do. That's self-expression. You're trying to say, I'm an individual, right? I'm unique.
Yeah.
So if that's what you're doing, why do you want to conform to this over here?
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean you throw logic out the window, right? Like, if you're going to make music, you want people to hear it. So you have to figure out a way to distribute. So that might mean I have to partner with someone who has that skill. If I don't have it, I need to find someone who does and partner.
Yeah.
That's how human civilizations came together. You have a strength, I have a strength. Hey, we can work together. We can share. So you don't have to do it alone either. You may not be great at the business side or the accounting side. You can hire people to do that. You can find resources and tools to help you do that. You don't have to be an expert in all areas, but you should be aware.
Yeah. Aware of like where your strengths are and where they aren't.
Yes.
Yep. And also aware of the fact that I think kind of to summarize kind of what we've been saying this whole time, creativity doesn't just sit in the left brain or the right brain, right? They work together.
Correct.
And I think some of the greats, like you're saying, Michael Jackson, he was very emotionally intelligent, but also had a technical side. He wanted things the way he wanted them done. There was structure, there was organization. It was like, if it's not hitting on the thing that I wanted to, we're going to try it again until it does, right? There was a very structural way he worked. And then you have the greats like Mozart and Beethoven who were emotion-based and didn't necessarily have that extreme structure and organizational side, and they still became a great, right? Because they partnered with people who knew what they were doing. Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is knowing where your strength is, right? And then allowing for, like you said, partnerships to allow for the other side to come up, or sitting down and thinking of things differently. If you can't partner with people, maybe if you don't have the funds to, it's like, okay, well, until I can feel that partnership, how can I make sure I'm still bridging the gap between the two sides? And that can be as simple as, what am I feeling today if I'm logic based, or what can I think of for long-term strategy? I think those are all really good points. And I think you guys touched on a lot of different ways we can make sure we are in that wise thinking spot with ourselves, with others, and our craft. For people who maybe want to find you guys after this episode, where could they find you? Where can they look for you? How can they partner with you guys? Let us know.
Yeah, so you can find us directly on our website, souljourneyproject.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram at Soul Journey Project. We'd love to connect with you. We'd love to answer questions. We'd love to work with you if you're interested in coaching, therapy, or partnering in different ways, podcasts, anything like that too. So please reach out. We do respond.
That's awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here and sharing your knowledge and all the things that you guys said. It's so cool. Like you said earlier, everybody's a creative. And so it's really cool to see people who are being creative in different ways, whether that's the corporate world, therapy, starting your own business, and hear from experts who are also doing the creative thing. I think a lot of times a lot of experts aren't necessarily like being creative. They're kind of in the function of just go, go, go. And I know all this knowledge and I'm not necessarily creating with it. So thank you guys for your perspective and everything that we talked on today. If you guys want to learn more about them, everything they said about finding them and where you can connect will be in this episode description. And as always, I am so happy to learn with you. I am so happy to grow with you. And I will see you on the next episode of Suffering for Art.